Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Hey, in today's video, man, I'm going to show you everything you want to know about pop-up assemblies, all right? Guys, when I'm talking about pop-up assemblies, I'm referring to the drain assembly on your bathroom sink. We call it a pop-up assembly because when you lift the rod up and down, that plunger lifts and stops, right? That way you fill your sink up with water if you want to. You know, these things, guys, man, they look pretty janky at the end of the day. You got these bars, this clip, these assemblies, there's adjustments on here. You know, these are going to come in a few different styles, which we're going to show you a couple different easier ones to install. But for the most part, most faucets are going to come with this. If you have a hole in the back of your faucet with a rod, you pretty much got to use this type of assembly. The other thing I want to make sure, guys, you're aware of is if you look at this sink, all right, this is just a bathroom sink. It's got a hole in it. That is the overflow drain, right? So if the water starts filling up, you know, you forget to turn your water off or one of your kids does, the water's going to go down there instead of over the top of the counter. If you look under the sink, this channel right here, it's part of the sink. That's where the water drains down into. So the type of pop-up assembly you have is designed for a sink with an overflow, and I'll show you what I mean when I take this one out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to reverse order this, and I'm going to remove this pop-up assembly so you can kind of get an idea of how they go together. Basically, guys, two different tools is all you need, and if you really want, you could do all the work with one pair of channel locks. You know, now all the plumbers that you watch on TikTok and YouTube, they all got these fancy pliers made from Germany that cost, you know, $100 a piece. You don't need any of that bull crap. Go to Walmart, get yourself a cheap pair of pliers, a cheap wrench. You should have those around your house anyway if you're going to try to do, you know, plumbing on your own. So we're going to use these two tools. First thing, guys, that we're going to do, if you notice this rod, when I'm lifting it up and down, it is attached down here by that nut. You see that right there? I'm going to take my little wrench, and all I'm going to do is kind of unscrew this. I don't need to remove it. Just unloosen it is all I'm doing, okay? Now watch this. That rod pulls right out. Nice and simple. Take that and set it aside. You can just leave that like that. What there is there's this little clip, okay, that holds this part onto this part. Just squeeze it together and slide it off, guys. Get in there nice and good. See that clip? That clip just went on this, depending on your adjustment. It comes with all those different holes because there's different adjustments. You're just going to have to kind of mess around with that on your sink. At the end of the day, you're going to find the sweet spot where that all works. But that clip held that together. So we're going to take those, we're going to set it aside. Now, at this point, guys, you could still be running water down your sink if you really wanted to. Nothing's going to leak. When I lift this rod up and down with my hand, if you look inside, right, that plunger's lifting up and down. Now, if this is installed right, I can't pull that out, right? I cannot remove that. Let me show you why here in a second. There's this nut here, guys. Sometimes these are just finger tight. You don't want to over tighten this, but you also don't want it too loose. If you can't unscrew that with your fingers, just get those little pair of pliers out, adjust them, and just unloosen it, okay? You don't need to tighten this too much, and I'll show you why. If you make that too tight, guys, it's hard to lift the rod up and down, if that makes sense. All right, so we're gonna unscrew this, nice and easy. Now watch this, we're gonna pull this out. See that? That's all one part. That nut comes off. This one has this little gasket that goes there. Some of them, guys, are going to have a gasket on each side of this ball. See that ball there? That's all one part. So yours may come with different ones. I'm just showing you basically how this installs, right? So see that part right there that was sticking in there? When I take this plunger out, now I can remove this plunger. All right. See those holes in the bottom? That was...
Oh, Lord.
Right, you lift that up and down is what lifts this rod up and down. That's why we couldn't pull this out, because that was in there, all right? So when you go to put this back in new, you got to make sure those are facing backwards. You don't have them sideways. You want them facing back. Install it down. This goes in there, lifts it up and down. Okay, we're all on the same page. So we're going to go ahead and remove all that and set it aside. We don't need any of that. Basically, I'm going to take this one out and I'm going to put in a different type and show you. So right now, here's what's holding all this assembly together. Basically, there's a big brass nut under here. That's where you need your pliers, okay? You take your pliers and you're just going to unscrew, hold on to this whole thing. All right, once you get that unloosened, oops, sorry, Blake. Once you get that unloosened, okay, now you're gonna just take your fingers, pull this down. Now this isn't gonna just drop out. There's one more part that we gotta do, okay? You're gonna unscrew that pretty much as far as you can. That nut's only gonna come down so far, right? Let me get that out of the way. Okay, now what you're gonna do, guys, in most cases, is take this and push it up. I'll come up here on top. Okay, see this part right here? It's screwed on. See that? That's screwed onto there. Now, these are different sometimes, guys. You know, this thing might be threaded on the outside. You know, this one's threaded on the inside. So if yours doesn't look exactly like this one, again, man, I'm just showing you the basic idea of how these install. So now that I've taken that off, underneath here, come back down underneath, this whole thing is just going to drop out, right? So when that went up there, this nut held it in place. Now underneath this nut, guys, you know, a lot of plumbers will use putty here to seal this. We use silicone. It really depends on your preference, what you want to put there. But you want to put some kind of putty or silicone underneath here so it seals down inside your sink, if that makes sense. All right, so that whole thing lifts down. So here's what that looked like up there. All right, remember I talked to you about the overflow in your sink. This pop-up assembly was designed for a sink that has an overflow in it. So that's what those holes are. When the water comes down your overflow, it actually came in this side and went down your drain. All right, so that's how we remove those. Guys, now when you're reinstalling one of these or you're putting a brand new one in, a little bit of stuff that we do is we actually take some pipe thread sealant like this. We'll put around here so that when this part tightened down, right, you just got a little bit of thread sealant. Another little trick that we do all the time, we'll actually take some of this pipe dope, we call it, but it's actually pipe thread sealant, and we'll put on this gasket because that gasket pushes up. That's actually the sill on your sink there. If you look underneath these gaskets, guys, let me see if I can get this off here. There's always going to be another washer here. Sometimes this flat one will be plastic. This one happens to be metal. The reason for that is, see how that goes up on the bottom? That's so that this nut has a solid surface to push this rubber gasket up. Plus it makes it so that the gasket doesn't want to squish out. So make sure that there is some kind of big washer here, all right? Like I said, it may be plastic. This one happens to be metal. So anyway, guys, that's how simple those can be removed. Remember, man, we're making this look easy because I'm sitting behind this beautiful display that Blake here built. But remember, you're doing all this work from underneath your cabinet. It's a lot harder than it looks. You know, you don't have the back here to get to this stuff. So think about that. Get yourself a good flashlight, light up. You got to climb under your cabinet on your back. You look like a turtle laying on your back trying to work up there. It's tougher than you think to remove these. So that's why I just kind of wanted to show you with this out. All right, so there's a couple of different other styles, guys. And honestly, to me, these are a lot simpler to install. But, you know, you have to decide. If your faucet has this hole in the back of it, remember that's where that rod went, right? I'll remember the rod. Okay, I'm going to show you a different type of pop-up assembly that you can install. Just remember, you're going to have a hole there. Or some faucets you can buy that aren't designed with the hole in the back. They actually, this here comes with a Moen faucet that can be installed, and it's just a different type. it's a clicker drain. And I'm going to show you this one here. Honestly, guys, I like these a lot better than I do the pop-up rods. So this here, I know it's kind of hard to see, you know, this thing here is plastic, all right? There's nothing wrong with that, guys. The plastic is absolutely fine. This part here is going to drop in from the top, okay? Just like that. Now, what you're going to want to do is, again, get yourself some putty or some pipe thread sealant. When I say putty, guys, plumber's putty, right? It's like silly putty we all played with as kids. You're going to want to put under there. It actually comes with a gasket that goes under there. If you don't have silicone or putty, you can use the gasket. We don't like the gasket. We'd rather put putty and silicone. So something like this here, you just stick in down from the top. Underneath here, you got your gasket that's going to push up on here. Just like the other one, this gasket is what's going to seal to the bottom of the sink. All right, so once you got that all pushed up under there, now this particular one, guys, it just comes with this big plastic nut. Remember that metal washer I showed you before? This one doesn't have it because it's just designed different. It's just a big plastic nut that you're going to put up under here, guys, and man, you're just going to snug that up. You can almost just hand tighten this, but I still recommend, you know, maybe taking a pair of pliers and snugging it up nice and good. The inside, guys, that's just a clicker. That's all that is. Now your sink holds water. Now it doesn't. So much simpler, right? There's none of that linkage, that rod, all that goofy stuff. Just remember, you can put this on an existing faucet that used a rod. You're just going to have a hole in the back of your faucet. But you know what? Nobody ever sees that anyway. Like I said, some newer faucets are coming with this type of clicker drain, and they don't have a hole in the back of the faucet at all. So that's just a different style. And honestly, guys, man, I think it's a lot simpler. I like the clicker. The disadvantage to the clicker is if you actually fill your sink up with water for whatever reason, you're holding water in your sink, you got to reach down in the water to push the clicker. But you know what? You then rinse your hand off when you're done. So, all right. So now we're going to take this gasket off. We're going to pull that out. So this one actually installs different. You see how I did that? The whole assembly drops in from the top. The other one, remember, pushed up from the bottom, right? Two different types. You know, guys, and you can go back on these videos and slow them down so you can, you know, go through this stuff a little quicker. See how that gasket is beveled like that too? Remember, that always, the bevel goes up, so it kind of seals the sink, all right? The bevel side up, flat side down. All right, here's the last type, guys, of a strainer to have. This here's what we call a grid drain, okay? This one here, you just don't have the option of stopping the water up. You know, which there's a lot of people that don't do that. You know what I mean? Remember back in the old cowboy days when the guys used to shave in that big bowl and they'd take their little razor and shave themselves? That's really what started people wanting to hold water in their sinks. Nowadays, I don't know, how many of you actually ever fill up your sink with water? I don't know what the need is. So if you don't care about that, they make this here, guys. It's called a grid drain. Again, it's designed for a sink with the overflow because it's got the holes in it. That just drops down from the top. And if you come back down here, the same principle. You got this gasket that slides up. You got the washer. Remember I told you some of them are metal, some of them are plastic. This one here is kind of a cardboard almost. It would go under that. And then the nut tightens down. So it would go up like this, boom, tighten down, put your pair of pliers. Very simple. The only, you know, disadvantage to this type of strainer is there's no way to hold the water, right? You'll see these on a lot of vessel sinks. You know, when people have powder baths and they got the pretty glass bowls sitting up on top of the countertop, a lot of times you'll see these grid drains in those. Just because nobody holds up water in a powder bath sink, right? That's for your guests to use. They also make these that are designed without overflows because a lot of those decorative sinks don't have overflows in them. So they don't have this thick part right here. So the grid strainer that you have won't have a hole in it. It'll be solid all the way. Those are designed, so if you buy one of those and you have an overflow, it won't work. That all makes sense. So guys, those are the different type of grid drains, pop-up assemblies, everything you want to know about a bathroom sink. Like I said, man, we're making this look simple here because we're working from the backside. But again, guys, when you're working underneath a vanity cabinet, you're laying on your back, climbing up under there, it's a lot tougher to do. But now that you understand at least how they work, you know, maybe it'll give you some ideas and save yourself a bunch of money from hiring us plumbers to come out to your house. All right, guys, have a great day. We're out. This seems so boring.